is live from YouTube.
Ah, clever.
Oh, here's the show, everybody. Welcome to LARPBook. This is the show in May 2025. I'm Stuart. All the way over there is Rob. And in between us, like a rose between two thorns, is Becki. Hi, Becki. How are you?
Hi, Becki.
Hi, I'm all good.
You're all good.
Right. So,
Both.
so, um, so Becki, I was, yeah. Access. Tell you what. Becki, introduce yourself.
Oh, you cheeky sod.
He is, yeah.
How rude. That's fair. Hi, I'm Becki. I'm the accessibility lead at a small LARP called Divided We Fall. And also I set up and kind of run a disabled LARPers Discord that hopefully is going to grow into a good community.
Fantastic. Right now, tonight's show is kind of all about accessibility within LARPs. So we want your questions. All right, put them in the chat. We will come to them. Hopefully, Becki, myself, Rob might be able to ask the questions you've already asked, answer the questions you've already answered. My brain was going somewhere with that, etc. Right. So let's start off a little bit. I think so, Becki, the the LARPs that you help with the accessibility side of things, right?
Mhm.
Can you explain to us a little bit how that kind of works and what things you have been able to achieve with that?
So essentially, there's like three different branches. You've got, is it three? Yeah. So you've got physical
Mhm.
accessibility. So when you think about disabilities, a lot of people think someone with mobility issues, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, then you've got mental health. So generally around people's anxiety and things like that. We have a lot of people, obviously in LARP, that get very anxious in situations. Maybe they have depression. And many games have horror elements and require trigger warnings and protections and things like that.
Yeah.
And then also you have neurodivergency, different ways of
Mm-hmm.
thinking, people maybe being dyslexic or dyspraxic, and how that affects their ability to access elements of the game. So
Okay.
when I approached Divided We Fall about going to the event, I was like, this sounds really good. Do you have anything in relation to mental health? That was why I went along, because I'm a trained
Yeah.
therapist. That's how I started. And then when I was there, I was like, okay, have we considered this accessibility thing? Have we considered that? And I nagged the game runners, and then they were like, can you come and help us with stuff? And then it became this symbiotic relationship. And now it's a wonderful working thing, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I would say the big achievement that we had was that Divided Before won the accessibility award at LARPCon
It,
this year.
yeah.
So very
Yeah.
positive kind of impacts.
No,
I
that's well done.
no, yeah, I can definitely kind of you you made your own job for yourself by the sounds of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything you've
okay.
done is oh, excuse me, I just got where everybody. I got to watch where I put my head at the moment because my head's large on Stu's system.
I mean, you may say that, Rob. I couldn't possibly comment.
Just don't tempt me to make it any bigger.
I'm biting my tongue so much. I'm like, no, this is on YouTube. You can't say anything.
Well, but, I mean, sister, right? There's only 6 people watching. I mean, what could possibly go?
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, everyone later. Okay,
Yeah,
Becki, I've got a little question for you. I mean, I want
Okay.
to get into talking about different handling accessibility and perhaps strategies that people use and any suggestions you got. But to begin with, I know you go to more than one LARP. I know you do more than Divided We Fall. So across the spread of games you're going to, how are you finding accessibility being handled?
Historically, there's been issues.
Yeah.
Uh, I think certain LARPs, it's easier to make things accessible. For
Hmm.
example, the fact that Divided We Fall only has 60 players, 30, 40 crew, it's much easier to kind of tweak things to make it work. Whereas Fest LARPs, I think it's so much harder. Because you've got environmental factors, you've got the fact that it's such a big game, you can't make the reasonable adjustments for each individual, maybe. But I would say that it's come a long way. I can't talk for certain LARPs because I've not been to them, but I can speak about my experience at, say, Curious Pastimes, where they have made aspects of the game so much more accessible that weren't there before. Because they've rewritten their rules and they've created a whole new game. So that's kind of made it better. But also doing things such as I'm now part-time in God at that game. So instead of me having to go out and play a monster that gets panel beaten into the ground in someone's gate, I can go and work on God for a few hours, and therefore I'm not physically screwed for the rest of the event.
Yeah.
So
no, that's
fine.
That's
big changes in some capacity, yeah.
No, that's I wouldn't want you to comment on any game you didn't see or know about. That wouldn't be really unfair. That would be awful.
Exactly. But that's partly why we set up the Discord, to allow disabled LARPers to kind of come together to talk about their experiences, both negative but also what they want to see changed. Or what is working well, because some things are probably working incredibly well for some people, and if we don't know about it, we can't then share it with other LARPs, for example.
That's right. If it happens in isolation, it's like it doesn't happen. Some people are going to be happy with it if it's working, but otherwise it's getting it out into a greater community that really counts. Do you want to introduce your Discord to everybody? Because let's try and fly the flag, and we will put a link to it in the show notes as well.
So essentially it's called Disabled LARPers. It's UK based, so obviously we've then broken it down into lots of different LARPs and organisations so that people can talk about, hey, I'm going to this event, I'm looking for some support, or I've been to this event, they did this really cool thing that really helped make the game accessible, I want to share it with everyone. And I kind of set it up with a few ideas in mind, one being that it was for lots of disabled LARPers to come together, but I also wanted it to be a space for those who are, say, family members or friends of those with disabilities, like how they can support their friends and things to make it easier, but also for game runners themselves, because what I would like, this is a long time goal, I don't know if it'll do this, I would like the option to be essentially paid sensitivity readers for LARPs to consider disabilities and to make it as inclusive as possible from the ground up when a new LARP is being built, as opposed to coming at it 20, 30 years down the line going, oh no, we now need to make it accessible and we have to rewrite the whole thing to make it work. I want to work with LARPs to build it from the ground up, kind of thing.
So like building a resource that people who are going to launch a new game can have a look at and go, oh, these are good ideas. Absolutely. These are things that we should be doing.
Yeah, and also just to read through rule sets, because I know there are some LARPs that will be like, yeah, cool, we're just going to put insanity in as an issue that people have to deal with without considering the impacts on people that live with mental illness, for example, and how that can be quite insensitive without considering it, you know.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna slightly play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
a little bit.
I love it.
You know,
go for it.
If there's anyone that's going to be the fly in the ointment, it's going to be me. So I find this going. Right. So I can almost see this going in the same way that classification has happened with video games, movies, etc. Right, where rather no, okay, let's go both ways with this, right? Let's go both ways with this. So rather than saying or helping a new LARP be mindful of these things, because there could be two ways of doing this, right? Almost have a disclaimer at the before anybody actually signed up and paid their money in that respect, that these sorts of things are discussed or explored or what have you within the game, right?
Yes.
Or for those LARPs that do want to go down the please have a look at this and see if we can make it more inclusive so everyone can come along, right? Do you see it then being able to, when you've got this running properly, right? And I think you will get this running properly. I'll be perfectly honest, right? Where it can use both systems, right? As in the classification, almost this LARP contains subjects of mental disability. This LARP contains subjects of sexuality. This LARP contains blah 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 blah. Right. So that way people can make an informed choice whether or not they want to go to it. And of course, those LARPs that go, look, we want to be mindful of absolutely everything. Can you help us in such a way where we don't touch on these subjects in that, or we touch on these subjects in a more respectful way?
I think because there's already LARPs kind of doing that to an extent, which is really good. So I know that Divided We Fall had already put that kind of in their literature before the first event in their original rule book. And it's still in there where it's like, we will touch on these themes. These themes will never be in the game. Like there's certain ones that just will not be written into the game in any way. And we will stop players from writing those themes in because of the impacts it might have on people, that kind of thing. And so, and I know other LARPs I've attended, tithing recently, they do a similar thing. It's like, we will cover all these things. And obviously tithing is a Hunger Games kind of themed LARP. You can imagine the horror elements that are in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they have a long list of like, all these things are likely to be in the game. And they're all like really traumatic kind of thing. But that then allows people to make that informed choice before they attend. And I think that's really important to have. I think Fest LARPs don't really do it, and they could, and they should, because there will be certain things that will be off limits, and then there will be certain things that maybe are thematically in there for particular, say, factions or nations and things, and people need to know that before they, sign up or pay their money. Kind of thing. I strongly believe in that.
Yeah, I mean, I like I say, I certainly as we're going down the what's the word I'm looking for you, Rob? It's the psychological side of things, right? I almost went very politically incorrect then, because I'm 53 and that's just the way my brain works, right? But I'm trying to be good. So the psychology.
Doing a good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, you heard it back there. That was amazing.
The psychology side of things, right? It's very. I think it's very difficult sometimes to try to understand, because psychology, as you know, and all the rest of it is well, part of it is a little bit of still voodoo in that respect, right? Because we don't 100% understand how the brain works and what it and why it does what it does, right?
Yeah.
So it's how would it be, oh god, I'll get some words in a minute. How do you be able to actually police that within a game of many players? Now, it may not be part of the plot that the writers have written, but it's something that somebody's, doing. Let's say Rob and I were playing in a game, right, and we were just constantly bullying one another, right? That's what our characters did, and was too much for an individual. How would a game system go around try to kind of say that's not, you're actually triggering that person? Do you see where I'm getting at? I think I went way around
delicate.
the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate balance
Yeah.
to provide agency to players to allow them to explore different things. And, why do players want to work with really traumatic things? It's because it's that opportunity to maybe work through their own brain or what someone they know has worked through. It's that opportunity to explore it in a safe way.
Yep. Agreed.
But also knowing that it can impact, therefore, on other players, which is partly where, having refs, game team, whatever you call them, in play is really important, because they can kind of keep an eye on the vibe, on the mood that's in the area.
Yeah.
And therefore intervene if need be, maybe send someone out on a mission or something. So can you go and explore this thing? You and Rob would then be okay to go and carry on bullying each other away on that mission, but you're then away from maybe the one or two people that are maybe impacted. That doesn't stop your play, and it doesn't stop their play. It's about managing that, and I think that's part of the responsibility of refs to facilitate.
That's awesome.
Okay, yeah, no, but very, very well done. Not something I like. Not something I had really considered. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know whether or not Rob will agree with me on this, right? But we are. I think Rob and I are certainly of the generation of Suck It Up, Buttercup, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What my wife. What my wife tells me, like many times a day, when I'm saying I don't want to do it. It's like, the washing up or whatever it may be.
Sometimes you've got to do the things you don't want to do, is what I was told growing up, and I still get told it.
Yes.
No, I think there is a generational thing going on, because I think the generation now that Stuart and I are oldish, but I've seen a huge sea change in accessibility in LARP. Well, basically, I've got accessibility issues myself, and I'm happy to talk about those. That helps. But it was very much in the beginning. There was no discussion whatsoever. You just figured it out yourself.
Yeah,
which is not great. And now it's like a whole lot of people are trying to make this work really well and trying to figure it all out, which is awesome. But yeah, there's an awful lot of. I can see where some older LARPers get into trouble, because they very much had the experience of I just got to deal with this. But now we can have the community trying to fix it, which is what we should be doing. But there is a weird generational vibe going on. But I think the trajectory is really good. Really awesome.
I agree. And if an old Luddite like me can wrap my head around it, I think anybody can. In that respect, although I am quite a sensitive individual.
So offensive.
I mean, as Rob said, certainly when we were LARPing back when both of us didn't have grey hair, etc., which was a number of years now, and it definitely was. I mean, I'm obviously used to the conditions that Rob has. I've known Rob for quite a number of years. I think we worked out since I was about 17, wasn't it, Rob?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So known Rob for only 20 years now.
Yeah, your maths is awful as well.
You're awful, yeah. So
me trying to play D&D, not able to do maths.
One's a good, right? Yeah.
No.
Only for the comedy aspect, right? Now then. So yeah, certainly when we were LARPing, we would have to kind of really be careful, Rob. Wouldn't you agree in the sheer fact of what we could both achieve within a day? Yeah, you know, we'd have to be mindful of certainly terrain, and all the rest of it, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
where those things, of course, still exist now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
now we have to be mindful of when to have our naps. But apart from that, yeah,
Okay, let's dig in, because I just hit the question I wanted to ask Becki, because Becki, I wanted to have a chat to you about how you thought websites are doing with explaining what their sites are like. Sorry,
Good
Labs,
question.
Labs
Mm.
actually being disclosing what their sites are like to players, because I've long been complaining that
Mm.
LARP websites are really good at explaining the law and the rules, and
yeah,
Yeah,
terrible about saying our site is like this.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
that's matters,
I think
and that
that's fair.
matters to me, because I'll just tell people, so that makes it easier. I've got a very former spina bifida, so I've always had mobility issues, and I may vary from really extreme to not quite so bad at the moment.
yeah,
But so I always got
yeah,
and I've always got an eye on terrain.
Mm.
So let's wonder what you think, how apps can actually do that better, or anything you picked
Yeah,
up from the community about how a good way to take that.
I think it's sometimes difficult for
Mm.
LARPs that move around a lot.
Oh God, yes,
Um,
yes,
when you think about it, there are some LARPs that they are just at one site all the time. Like take for example, iLARP. They
yeah,
are at Eversley. They're always there. It's their site. They know it back to front. Um, I think that makes it easier to therefore put out information, because it's like,
mm.
well, this is what we put out before the last event and before the last event, and nothing has changed.
It's easy.
That kind
Yeah,
of thing. Very simple. Um, Things like LT has the same site, Empire same site, so
yep,
that makes it so much easier. When they're smaller LARPs and they move around from site to site and
yeah,
maybe don't manage to do a site walk until much closer to the event,
true.
that then makes it harder to communicate. However, that is a LARP's responsibility to communicate before people
Yeah,
then commit to buying a ticket.
yeah,
Um, because if you don't have all that information, you might not make the choice. Like when you think about terrain,
yeah,
access to proper toilets instead of portaloos,
yeah.
or disabled portaloos that have more space and things like that. And if that information isn't out there, then how can you make that decision whether to go?
But
It's
how,
yeah,
if you, yeah, and I agree. If is a site being repeat used, it would be it's nice to see the organisers thinking about that, and building up this body of work. They can just keep referring back to going, this is what it's like. It's
yes,
really hard for, say,
exactly.
small. Like, for example, we had Gritland's on a few months ago, and Gritland's
Mm,
policy very much is all about it's a different site every single time.
yeah.
yeah,
So they have a horrendous task of trying to explain what the sites are like,
Hmm.
because they're hitting wildly different terrains, and uh,
Mm.
so yeah. But that's not to knock anybody who's in that situation. It's just
no, no,
Yeah. It's something to consider when you
mm,
are a LARP organization. I
yeah,
think it's really important that maybe you have a timeline of when you're going to do a site walk. Therefore, what information do you need to get, and then what do you need to relay to your players and crew, and when you plan to do that. And the problem is, quite often I find with organizers is that information about the site comes out in the last week before the event,
yeah,
which then creates a lot of stress. And if you're already someone who is neurospicy, you've got accessibility needs, and then you only get the information 4 days before an event, it is really anxiety inducing. Um, and I think that's where then, say, crew drop out, because they're like, well, why would I bother going? I'm stressed about it, that kind
I'm
of
not going to
thing.
do this.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I know at DWF, I'm very mean. I nag Charlie and Andy, and I'm like, right, I need this information, and I need to put it out, and I put it out, and like as early as possible,
yeah,
because I know that's what I would need,
yeah.
you know, and it's encouraging other organizers to do similar.
I love the idea of a timeline, counting across how information is likely to appear. Because that's massively helpful. Because then you can have an expectation of, okay, I really like the look of this
Yeah.
LARP, but I know it's not going to be worth me signing up to it until they hit that
Yeah.
point where they can describe it to me. I mean, in the meantime, LARPs can do things like show maps as a site, or make
Exactly.
use things like Google Maps to make aerial photography and maps available, which is helpful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't beat somebody going to the site and having a really good look and explaining it backwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, even down to the set pieces, then, right? Perhaps I know this is more work for the LARPs and all the rest of it, but it's one of those things that I think could add a benefit. Is they could say, where this is happening, the ground is blah 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 blah. Shale underfoot, steep banks, whatever it is. Yeah.
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 In that respect, and let's be honest, you could just build up a bank of those. In this area, it's like this, and this. So when you're putting a set piece together, drag those things in, at the top, so people know what the area is like, right?
Yeah.
That could help. And there's there's probably many different kind of ways and aspects of doing that. But let's talk about more now the mental aspect of the the different things. So if let's say I decided tomorrow I wanted to do a LARP, right? I want to run my own LARP. Let's call it the LARPBook LARP, right? Where within the LARPBook LARP, it's your job to go and find LARPs and report on them, and that's the game, all right? Now,
Role playing your job. Got it. Okay.
Got it. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Ooh, that could be fun. Actually.
Slightly less stressful if it's just a game.
Just a game. So, what would be a good way for me to start thinking about the cognitive aspects of it, then, to allow me to inform people what they would probably experience, and is it for them, or can I change things so it is experienceable? I think that's a word.
Close enough.
Close enough.
It'll work. I guess, considering the type of LARP it is. So, for example, is there fighting? Is there spell vocals? Is there, loads of calls that you need to remember? Once you know what type of LARP it is, what kind of environment is it going to be? Is it urban? Is it out in the field? That kind of thing. So breaking it down into little aspects to work through to put that information out there. Yeah. Because when you think about it, there's so many different disabilities out there. You can't account for everything, No. But being able to put out that information of, okay, it's a lot of uneven ground. You're not going to get a wheelchair there. This is what you could access if you were attending our event. Maybe there's like a building section and all the key plot happens there, but there's linears that go out, for example. You would then explain that and say those are additionals. If you are ambulatory, you might be able to do that, but if you are completely wheelchair, needing, then that might not be accessible to you. However, all the plot relevant stuff, you will be able to be involved, and then allowing someone to make that decision whether that is a viable choice for them, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So in LARPBook the LARP, right? There's obviously very, very high stressful, high stress situations on whether or not we're going to go for that second cup of coffee or not. you know, do we actually need to wake up at 10? That sort of thing. So with what I'm trying to get round to is the sheer fact with all the cognitive, the mental, the that side of things. How does one go about? I suppose it comes down to the sheer fact of know what your LARP is, know what you feel you want to put in it. Yeah. Analyze those things. What does it cover? High stress situations? Is there fighty combat? Right? Are there things that could portray suicide? Are there things that could portray this, but that, whatever? Yeah. And then
put those warnings out. Yes.
And then let people know and then build up that warning pack.
Yeah, difficult now that I'm really starting to think about that. I mean, I know certainly when we ran LARPs, back in the old days,
just to let Becki know, Becki, we used to be really seriously involved in a small LARP called Fear the Dark, which was very much a modern day horror experience. Which
Love
built
it.
Which built up its own mythos. How can I put it? It would probably get into trouble today for some of the things it did back in the 90s.
It's the 90s. It didn't exist. What are you on about?
Yes!
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, its heyday was the 90s. It was it carried on until about 2010, but that was its heyday, and it did some wrong things, but they were wonderful games. But
you live and learn, and society
so much,
changes, and then you learn from that.
Yeah, there's so much doing those.
Yeah, we did learn an awful lot. I mean, like I said, thinking back to what we did, what we planned, what we executed in that respect. To put that into context, I mean, God, we'd have to have all the bloody warnings with the stuff that we did.
You have to remember that locking somebody in a coffin is bad.
Okay, right. So there's a LARP that I'm part of organising, and there is a consent for people to get locked in a coffin. We've got a consent form.
That's the way you do it.
So you can do it.
And there you go.
Ways to go about it. There you go.
Rob, we just get consent forms.
Yeah. Please sign this consent form of all these conditions. Or tick off the ones you don't consent to.
Yeah, but that is part of it, isn't it? It's just being mindful.
Part of it.
But I would also argue it is the responsibility of the player or crew member to be aware of their limits. And sometimes you don't know your limits until you're in a situation. True. And that's okay. You then have a safe way to remove yourself from the situation and then decide if those scenarios are just out of bounds for you. And that's entirely fair, and no one should be shamed for that.
No.
If they find their limits.
Yeah.
Historically, I know there's been times when people have been shamed for having to step out of crewing or monstering or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see it is shifting, that people are instead now like, oh, okay, that was too difficult or traumatic or whatever. Let's find something else that you can do that makes you feel just as included.
No, that's very interesting you say that. The way we kind of went about it was we would actually more ask for volunteers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than say, I need you to, right?
It should be, and perhaps it should have been done. If it was happening now, we'd probably start putting this information out way in advance. We say, "Are you okay with being buried lightly in the ground for about an hour while we wait for the place to get to you?"
Yeah. Are you okay being shallow buried with a headstone?
And if you are, how much coffee do you want for that? Or beer after the event?
How much can we pay you in coffee? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee should probably be the official LARPBook currency, but that's another story.
Oh, it really is. Yes.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you mean.
Mhm.
Okay, right. So we've covered physical. We've covered the mental stuff. We've covered a little bit of things that can be done. Is there anything else that we kind of want? And the people that are watching the show, don't forget you can ask questions.
Yeah,
Please put
please.
them in the
If
comments,
you want
and
to,
we
if you want
will
to ask
ask them.
any of us a question or chastise us for things we've done in the past, but mostly ask us questions, or if you've had a really interesting or good experience that you want to share, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, there's a
I mean,
reason
one of
we.
my big
Yeah,
bugbears I'll say is I don't like lots of mud at LARPs
no.
because that's what really messes up my ability to participate.
Yes.
Yep.
So I tend to avoid things where I go, that side's got a reputation for getting really muddy. I'm going to call that a no-go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
See,
uh,
that was something I was thinking on with when we were talking about like sites and having information out there. What I would
yeah.
love to see is more different LARP organizers working together. So, say for example,
Yeah.
Divided Before, we've used the jail. We
Yeah.
know that site back to front because we fully explored it. We did site plans like for where all the players' rooms were going to be because they all sleep in character and it's 24-hour time in. We've got
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that information. We know what's accessible, what isn't accessible. If another LARP, say Gritlands, who I believe has used that site as well, then
Hmm.
said, "Hey, we want to use this site," we give them that information because why would we not? You know,
Yeah.
and I would hope that they, in return, would then give us information. You know, if we went up to Driffield, I believe they used it before us.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but also there was Bastion LARP. They used the Driffield site
Yep.
4 weeks before. You know, then there's sharing of that information because we're all running similar kind of style games and similar environments. Why not? I would love to see more of that information sharing and encouragement
Oh,
and
yeah.
guidance to each other to make it work better. Because obviously the player bases become quite similar because they go to the same games because they like those kinds of games,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and the players can give information and therefore create those resources. You know, I'm all
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
sharing information and lifting each other up as opposed to just going, no, this is mine, I must protect, you know.
No, no, no. If we all share, that's incredibly powerful. It just comes down to the right mechanism or the right way of doing it or the right venue for it. I mean, the
Yeah.
Yeah.
community's
Exactly.
got is doing some. I mean, I'm in that community. Is doing some really cool things, but it
Mm.
sounds like the way you want to build it up. Yeah, if we can get that kind of that sharing between labs,
Mm.
the players or organizers can chime in. We've just used this site, and
Yeah.
um, it's going to be like it's going to be like this. Like for example, I was at console site back
Oh
in.
God.
Yes, I'm sorry, but that site is evil.
Everything is uphill, even when you're at the top of a hill. I don't understand.
Yeah. It
How
defies
can there
logic.
be more
Everything is
up?
uphill. Where are you? I'm at the top of the hill, but it's still uphill. Yeah. But there
I
are
hate
ways
it.
around that site that make it easier. Somebody could go, actually, it is horribly uphill, but if you take that
Mm.
route and that route, that's safer and easier.
Yeah.
Even though
There's
there is
lovely
no real
parts of the
easy way
site,
around that
but
site. It's a beautiful
yeah,
site, by the way. It's gorgeous, but my goodness, it's hard.
yeah. If you can drive around the site, it's fine because you can get to the other end of the site in the car.
Yeah.
But that is another point. Like I remember I did a LARP there and they made it really awkward. They were like, no, you have to walk all the way up there. And it was wet and I'd never been at the
Mm.
site before. It was dark and we were at the other end. And I was like,
Oh,
we
that's
haven't
hard.
timed in yet. Why can we not drive the car up that end and then after time out, drive back off site? And
Yeah,
they made it
there's a perfectly
extremely
good
difficult.
track going up there. A car can easily navigate
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. They let me do it the second day, but not the first day. I don't
Yeah.
understand. Maybe they just realised. But, just being reasonable. I mean, there's some very funny photos that came out of Divided Before of a couple of our players driving through the site with their finger in the air out the window of the car, going, we're not really here, kind of thing. But I think most people would just go, okay, there's a car moving, I'm going to ignore it, as opposed to it ruins my immersion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So are there any other questions you can think of, Rob?
I don't think so. I think what I would like to say though, if anybody's wants to use, but first of all, please use disabled LARPers because that's the other forum for discussing strategies and ways of coping and how to get information. But if anybody wants to sort of use LARPBook to hook up to Becki or to anybody in the LARP community who wants to discuss this, please do. We're really happy to be a conduit for that.
Yes, we only know one or two people.
You're very new to the hobby, you know.
Very new, yeah.
Yeah.
Hardly know anybody. If anybody can help us out with some contacts and what have you, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Well.
I think maybe there's one more thing we should do. Is pre-COVID, this is probably about 2016, 17, so old now. We did a whole series on people coping with disability and LARP. It might be time to revisit that. Look at all the more recent changes, especially all the post-COVID changes the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
interesting.
I do know that you had COVID, didn't you, Rob? Coming back from a game.
I came back from Curious Pastimes with a really very hefty case of COVID. You're the same. I know you're the same, Becki. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mega spreader at Curious
Yeah,
Pastimes,
it was.
and I think that's because some of the, and I say this about society as a whole, I think some of the learnings of COVID, where people were more mindful if they were a bit ill or used anti-bac all the time.
Yeah.
The gel. Yes, okay, it's a bit unpleasant, but it made a difference to people's cleanliness.
Yeah.
And LARP is not the cleanest environments. Like, you don't necessarily have running water or that kind of thing. Making sure you always have that for yourself, but for also others in the community that may be more negatively impacted by that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Creating one-way systems in gods, and
Yep.
like when we came back from COVID, I know Curious Pastimes had a consent rule about being touched. So touch spells, you could hover your hands for the first time.
Right.
That wasn't there before. You had to touch the person before.
Yep.
And that bit stayed. It's now if you don't know a person and you don't know what they're comfortable with, you could probably hover your hands, and that's absolutely okay, kind of thing. But that should always be the case for whatever reason.
Yes.
It might be that someone has like a condition that means that touch really hurts, or it could be that, I don't know, someone's autistic and really doesn't like strangers touching them, or it doesn't have to be a disability related thing.
No, I
That
mean all
should
reasons are
all
valid.
be-
All reasons are valid. So
exactly. And I like that those learnings have been kept. I want to see other learnings returned to about the cleanliness and things like that, because super spreaders are not fun. And then when everyone gets COVID and, the week after an event, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Let's try and avoid that more. Do a test, for God's sake, do a test.
Yes. If you're going
do a test.
do a test maybe before you go. Just
Exactly.
Just saying.
I will die on that hill.
No, I don't like super spreader events. And so, I think that's a really good point to remind people. Post-COVID, I know a lot of people think it's no longer there or a problem. It's still there. If you catch it, it's still a problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's still unpleasant.
and it's still a problem. It's still a very big problem. Let's say for certain members in society, right? Just because you might be sort of fit and healthy, right, doesn't mean that the person next to you is.
Exactly.
So have a bit of care. Have be a bit more mindful about these things. Right, so we're actually coming up on about 50 minutes now. Can you believe we've been talking about this for 45 to 50 minutes?
I could talk forever about it. Honestly, it's like, because I do it for work. Like, disability is one of my expertise in my therapeutic practice. And then I'm disabled and I'm a LARPer, so it's the kind of thing that I will just keep talking about and annoying people with.
No, you just keep on doing that because
yeah.
helping a lot of people, me
Keep
included.
keep prodding. Going like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Yeah, you got
Hopefully
it.
not making enemies from it, because I think sometimes I've annoyed people too much.
Don't
But
worry. I have found, in the past that you can annoy people so much, but in the end, if you're right, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
And I have
sure.
I have a sign up there that was made for me by James. I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right.
So true.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
the
good.
autistic experience.
But there we go. I think we're probably going to wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Something. Thank you very much, Becki, for coming along and talking to us and giving your point of view. I hope that my points of view didn't trigger anybody, because let's be honest, if anyone's going to trigger anybody, it's going to be me, right? And what have you. But if you have been watching, thank you very much. Don't forget to go and find Becki's again. It's the Discord group is called what?
Disabled Larpers.
Yeah.
Disabled Larpers. Fantastic. Again, like I said, we will put the link in the show notes so you can actually sort of find that as well. If you want to find more content from LARPBook, then obviously go across to larpbook.com. We are also on YouTube, Facebook. I think we still have the Instagram account that we don't do very much with, etc. But it's all still there. Should you want to get in contact with the show, then just you can find the email addresses, use Messenger, whatever you want to do. Right, we'll help you out with any questions that
Carrier
you've got
pigeon.
as well.
Use carrier
Carrier
pigeon.
pigeon, indeed, yes. But is it an African or European pigeon? I don't know. No, it's a swallow, isn't it? Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a swallow. Yeah.
That's why I'm not a pigeon. Yep.
Damn it. Right. So, Becki, thank you very much for coming along this evening and talking to us about that. I hope we've been informative. I hope we've been entertainative and all the rest of it. So, from myself, from Rob, from Becki, have a good night, everybody, and happy LARPing. Bye.
Bye.